Welcome, class, to our second quarter of our 2020 to 21 school year, and welcome to our first lesson for this new quarter. And our first lesson is in history, and we are going to be studying about medieval Europe, or you might hear it being called Europe in the Middle Ages. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about Middle Ages and what that means. And I'm going to start doing some pre-recorded lessons like this. We'll have some live lessons or live readings like we did in the first quarter. But this way I can edit a little bit more of these videos and hopefully make them a little bit more interactive or enjoyable. I can post some more pictures or some videos to really amplify what we're studying and learning, to hopefully make it a little bit more enjoyable and to help you learn the material that you need to learn for each lesson that we have. So let's get prepared to learn about medieval Europe, or Europe in the Middle Ages. So we're going to be reading about a time in history that covers approximately 1,000 years of events that took place between what is considered ancient times, when the Greek and Roman civilizations flourished, and modern history. That is the period in history that falls in the middle between ancient and modern times. For this reason, this time period is also referred to as Middle Ages. The term medieval means related to the Middle Ages. So we'll be reading about events that took place and about the people who lived during the Middle Ages in Europe. Some of you might have already studied this in third grade. You might have learned that Rome was divided into two empires, the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire. Eastern Roman Empire included the present-day countries of Greece and Turkey, and the Western Roman Empire included the present-day countries of France, Belgium, Italy, Spain, Austria, and England, as well as parts of Germany and Northern Africa. So we're going to be focusing on the Western Roman Empire, and that's what this chapter focuses on. And even though it's not as large as the original Roman Empire, it was still vast, very large and powerful. So let's call attention to our big question. And remember that you need to participate in the discussion post after this lesson. And there's also chapter vocabulary that we'll be doing for each chapter. So you can do the chapter 1 vocabulary. And I'll also be offering extra credit to those that can use one of the core vocabulary words for each chapter. So for instance, for chapter 1, we're going to be having a few vocabulary words that we're going to learn about. And if you can use one of the core vocabulary words in a sentence and put it down below in the description, or just reply to this lesson here on Canvas, or if you're watching this on YouTube, if you go back to Canvas and then write your sentence below, then I can give you some extra credit points for joining this chapter lesson. So let's dive into chapter 1 of medieval Europe. So you have access to this book online. You can find it in the homepage, my Mr. Gowdy's homepage on history, and you click on the PDF. You can pull that up right now, or you can look on the screen and just follow along with me. And this is what you'd be seeing on the screen, this medieval Europe. And we'll scroll down, and we have 21 chapters that we're going to be covering. And today we are just jumping into chapter 1 called Changing Times. So I'm going to scroll down and get to chapter 1. And like I said a few moments ago, let's bring up the big question. All right, what does the big question say? Can you guys find it and read it with me? It says, what changes led to the decline of the Western Roman Empire? So as we read chapter 1, look for things that led to the decline of the Western Roman Empire. And what does decline mean? And what does it mean in regard to Rome? So we had a phrase last quarter in our literature section called "the bigger they are, the harder they fall." I think that will apply as we read through medieval Europe in these different chapters. We'll find more about the fall of empires. And so we're going to learn about how Western Roman Empire, how it fell, right? How it declined, the fall of the Western Roman Empire. So we're going to start reading now, and again, look for ways of how the Western Roman Empire fell or started to decline, and what led to that. So chapter 1, Changing Times. Roads lead to Rome. You may have heard the expression, all roads lead to Rome. During the glory days of the Roman Empire, that saying was true. Rome was the center of the Roman Empire, and roads from all over Europe led there. All right, there's our first vocabulary word, highlighted in red, empire. So an empire is a group of countries controlled by a single authority. So the Roman Empire controlled other countries. So these roads allowed the emperor to spread Roman ideas and laws throughout the vast empire. With the system of roads, the empire could send messages to carry instructions to the regional governors. Do you think they had a postal system like what we read about previously in the dynasties of China? What do you think? Roads also allowed goods and taxes to travel across the empire into Rome. These goods and taxes kept the powerful Roman Empire running. Most important, perhaps, was that Roman soldiers used the roads. Their job was to enforce the law and put down any rebellions or attacks on the empire. So these roads were very important to the Roman Empire. As we read, they talked about how it was able to send messages or money or taxes, and for the soldiers to guard the empire. And so let's scroll down and look at this picture right here. This is a picture. As we read the caption, it says, roads like this one in Italy were used to carry goods across the Roman Empire. So can you imagine soldiers on their horses going up and down these roads protecting the empire, or messengers carrying messages to and from the Roman Empire? So the roads helped hold the Roman Empire together, but they also played a role in its decline. Wow, looks like we're going to learn a little bit about how these roads led to the decline of Roman Empire, which will help you answer your big question. So decline, a gradual loss of importance and power. So other armies could use these roads too. The same roads that carried the Roman army out of Rome made it easy for outside invaders to march into the city. And this is our next vocabulary word, as you can see that it's highlighted in red. And an invader, if we look here to the right, means a person or group that comes into a country by force. Over a month ago, we talked about 9/11. We had a special morning announcement from Principal Hillock, and those that were in school watched a cool video about, an important video about 9/11, and it was talking about those terrorists, or you could say invaders, that came into the U.S. and caused the planes to crash. So these roads, go back up to this picture, these roads helped Roman soldiers protect the city, but these roads, as we just read, were a part of its decline. These roads made it easy for invaders, outside forces, outside armies, those that are not a part of the Roman Empire, to come into Rome, and that will lead to its decline. So at this time, reading right here, at this time, Rome was still a vast and powerful empire, but it faced some serious problems. Powerful Roman generals were fighting each other. Each general wanted to gain enough power to become emperor. This conflict was harmful for the health and well-being of the empire. The Roman government's main purpose was to provide law and order so that people could conduct business and live in safety. So these Roman empires were fighting, trying to get control and hopefully one day become an emperor. Instead of focusing on keeping Rome safe, they were more focused on themselves and trying to gain power. Continue to read. In addition, this large empire needed money to build roads, bridges, and buildings, as well as to pay administrators and soldiers. Over time, it became impossible to pay for everything. Managing the Roman Empire became impossible. Our next section, people on the move. The Roman Empire grew weak enough in the 200s and 300s that it began to attract the attention of various groups that lived on the edge of the empire. Maybe these are the invaders, or outside its boundaries. And what is a boundary? Well, this is our last vocabulary word for this page. And if we scroll up, it says the boundary is the edge of a country or an area or its outside limits. So our city of Gallup has boundaries. If you go outside the boundary of Gallup, you enter either the county or you enter another city. New Mexico has boundaries. That's how you know if you're in the state of New Mexico or not. And the same thing with countries. Our country has boundaries, or the border, right? Those that either travel to Canada or travel down to South America, through Mexico. So Rome had conquered some of these groups of people and had sent armies to guard the borders against others. The Romans, who mostly spoke Greek and Latin, looked down on these people who spoke different languages and had different cultures. They labeled them barbarians. The word barbarian comes from a Greek word meaning foreigner. The Romans dismissed these non-Greek and non-Latin speaking barbarians as primitive, uncultured, and inferior. However, many barbarian groups were not uncivilized. So here are two new vocabulary words. Uncultured meaning showing poor manners and bad taste or crude. And then uncivilized meaning not advanced socially or culturally. For example, many had skilled metal workers who created beautiful art, jewelry, and coins. The Romans referred to a number of groups as barbarians, including the Angles, the Saxons, the Huns, the Vandals, and the Goths. Several of these groups of people were Germanic. They lived in northern Europe. The Angles and the Saxons lived in what is now Denmark and northern Germany. They eventually drove the Romans out of England. The Goths and Vandals attacked and eventually sacked the city of Rome itself. So what does sack mean? To destroy and steal things in a city or building, usually with an army. So the Goths and Vandals attacked and destroyed the city of Rome. From the Roman point of view, the Vandals caused so much destruction that even today we still use the word vandalism to describe acts of destruction. So you probably know that graffiti or painting on buildings that don't belong to you is considered vandalism, or destroying people's property is considered vandalism. So now we learn what that came from. It came from the Vandals, who in the Middle Ages attacked Rome and destroyed Rome and sacked it, as we learned about the vocabulary word. And now we use the word vandalism. So however, the barbarians who left the longest memory of fear and destruction were not the Germanic people. They were a nomadic people from Central Asia called the Huns. The Huns lived on the steppe, a flat, grassy, treeless area that stretched across what is now Ukraine, southern Russia, and Kazakhstan. So let's look at this picture really quick. We can look at all these barbarian invasions into Europe. So looking at our map key, red is Western Roman Empire and purple is the Eastern Roman Empire. Right? If we scroll up, we have our map compass, north, west, east. So red referring to the west and purple referring to the east. And you can see all of these invasions or invaders from barbarians coming into these empires, mostly all right here into the Western Roman Empire. So the Huns raised sheep, cattle, and horses on the steppe. As the seasons changed and the available grasses dried up, the groups moved in search of new grazing lands for their livestock. So grazing new lands for the animals to graze or to eat, from the ground. The Huns were skilled horsemen and experts with bows and arrows. As young children, they learned to ride horses. That's similar to the Mongols that we learned about in the dynasties of China. So good was their horsemanship that one Roman historian described the Huns this way, quote, "They are unable to put their feet on the ground. They live and sleep on their horses," close quote. In the 1300s, the Huns, tired of trying to survive on the steppe, began to move westward across Europe. Thanks to their skill in warfare and their excellent horsemanship, the Huns easily conquered other groups of people and moved on to their land. Alright, so let's learn about Attila the Hun. The Huns struck fear into the hearts of those they challenged. The most feared of all the barbarians was Attila the Hun. For about 10 years, Attila and his brother Bleda shared the throne as rulers of the Huns, but Attila wanted the rule alone. He killed his brother and became the sole king and leader of the Huns. Attila became known as a brilliant but cruel general. He led the Huns westward, conquering other groups and leaving a trail of destruction. The Huns crossed the Danube River and crushed a Roman army in Eastern Europe. Then they invaded what is present-day France. At one point, a Roman army joined with another barbarian group, the Visigoths, to defeat the Huns in a bloody battle in Gaul, present-day France. But that didn't stop Attila. It was to be his only defeat. Next, Attila turned his attention to Rome itself. In 452, he swept across northern Italy in an attempt to save Rome. Pope Leo I, the Bishop of Rome, rode out to meet with the feared Hun general. Most Romans thought that was the last they would see of Pope Leo. But as the legend goes, in a dramatic face-to-face meeting, Attila thought he saw a halo above the Pope's head. The church believed that Attila retreated because he feared this holy man, who seemed to have a power the cruel conqueror knew nothing about. Modern historians note, however, that Attila's forces were very weak at this point. Attila may have been aware that Roman armies were approaching from the east. Regardless of the reasons, Attila decided not to attack Rome. Soon after this meeting, Attila became sick and died without their leader and weakened by disease. The Huns retreated into Eastern Europe. Here's a little depiction. This painting shows Pope Leo I on the left, protected by angels, meeting Attila on the right, who is on the black horse right here. So, our last section, the end of the Roman Empire. You may have heard the expression, Rome wasn't built in a day, which means that it takes a long time to accomplish a big task. It took hundreds of years before the Roman Empire reached its peak, and then it lasted 400 of years more. Eventually, the Roman Empire was split into two parts. The Western Roman Empire, centered in Rome, and the Eastern Roman Empire, ruled from Constantinople. Finally, in 1476, a German king named Odoacer attacked Rome and killed the emperor. Since no new emperor was named, the date 476 is sometimes used to mark the end of the Western Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire, which was not conquered, lasted for almost another 1,000 years. Alright, so that's chapter 1. Hope you guys enjoyed diving into medieval Europe, and we have a lot to cover, and I'm excited to be learning all this with you and talking about it. Hope you enjoyed some of the pictures and videos that I put over this video. Remember to do the chapter 1 vocabulary assignment and also participate in the big question discussion post. And some hints to help you are, let's actually scroll up really quick and look at the big question. What changes led to the decline of the Western Roman Empire? Think about the roads, and also think about what the Roman governors were doing, and then think about what the barbarians did. And those 3 things will help you answer the big question discussion post. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and let's have an amazing quarter together. You guys are awesome. See you in the next one.